Hello, I'm back for another video. My name is Josh Kasich, and today is my part 2 for my Inuyasha review. Now I know I said in the first part that I was going to split these into 2 parts, and that's where we are because it took so long. Now I also mentioned that probably at the end of this video, in the last video, that I do mention that most likely I'm going to split these into 2 parts. I know that might sound redundant, but I did mention that was going to happen, so keep that in mind. And then without further ado, let's begin. Then they meet a monk named Moroku actually, and he is kind of a lustrous monk so he's hitting on he hits on women and asks them to birth his children. But the reason why he's doing that is because his family is actually cursed by Naraku with this thing called the wind tunnel, a black hole, essentially. And although when he puts it, his kind of robe thing over it, it doesn't actually suck anything in. But when he opens it up, it can suck pretty much everything in the area. And once if the black hole keeps getting bigger, eventually it'll crack open his hand and then engulf him, kill him, and essentially all his anyone in the surrounding area. And that's what happened to his father. Although I think his father actually committed suicide when doing it, because he didn't actually kill anyone. He just activated because he was tired of dealing with it. So he kills himself, so that's really traumatizing to Moroku. So his entire goal is to defeat Naraku to finally break the curse. But if he couldn't, he wanted to have a child to go on to break the curse, and that's why he's such the way. And since he's been doing it all the time, it became a bad habit where he. So that's kind of another thing. Another character introduction to the group is Sango. She is a demon slayer from a demon slayer village who her family is kind of the leadership of. And while her little brother, Kohaku, her father, and some other men were on a mission, Naraku sent demons after the village, killing everyone there. Which is, it's like, that's pretty bad if it's a demon slayer village. But on their mission, they were actually helping a feudal lord who was actually Naraku, and Naraku took control of Kohaku, who killed the father and all the other men and almost killed Sango, but Sango is able to stop them and then tries to attack the feudal lord, and then the feudal lord tells his men to shoot arrows, which actually kill Kohaku, which also thought to kill Sango, but she actually lives. But she didn't know this was Naraku who was doing this. But she kind of joins the group. Well, first she was tricked by Naraku that it was Inuyasha who destroyed the village, but she eventually learns the truth and actually joins the group. And then now Kohaku died, but Naraku brought him back with a shard of the sinking jewel, which is a big conflict throughout the series. That he had to, they had to fight him, and he murdered a bunch of innocent people. So he was a protagonist. Now Susamu he doesn't like humans. Well, at one defeat, I forgot he lost an arm to Inuyasha in that first battle. But one of the other battles he lost to Inuyasha, he landed, and a little girl from a village named Rin tries to help him out, but he refuses. But she gave him like a smile. Now, when she went back to help the village, she actually is beat up by some people in her village. So she goes back, and Susamu asks her why she was beat up, and she just smiles. But then goes back to the village, and then Koga attacks the village. And Koga is a wolf demon, part of the wolf demon tribe. And he has his wolves kind of kill everyone in the village, and he was only really food. And Rin actually gets killed, unfortunately. And she's like a little girl, I think 8. But Susamu finds her, and he didn't really care about humans, but he remembered the smile he gave her, or she gave him, I meant. And so he brought her back to life with his sword. And then she became a traveling companion, which Naraku actually kidnapped several times, and this causes Susamu to be really doesn't like Naraku. But it really shows that Susamu going from a person who really hates humans but to kind of loving a little girl. Now they do kind of, if you haven't understand the plot of Yashima, when she was like 12 or 13, I think, which is technically in most other cultures, that is a total like adulthood age. Obviously not here, but he asks to marry, or he asks her to marry him, and then years later they had like twin daughters. You might think that's weird, but it's the feudal. Like I said, several cultures that is okay, and even way back then, this is feudal era, so it's just history. I know it's gross, but it's not technically wrong in this case, and it's because of how the culture works. I mean, not just saying that the American culture is the best and it's correct is kind of rude, in my opinion. Even though I do find out I know it's gross, but it's not wrong. Okay, I just want to clarify that, but that's besides the point. And then, so Koga, although seems to be a villain, he actually kind of turns out to be a good guy, stops kind of killing humans, and also falls in love with Kagome. Now, Kagome, you know how Inuyasha didn't like Kagome at first? Well, they actually kind of started to fall in love with each other. But unfortunately, Kikyo is brought back to life by another demon who originally, by using the ashes of Kikyo and like mud and stuff, so she isn't technically alive. She was actually she was brought back from the dead using Kagome's soul, but something happened where Kagome got her soul back. But Kikyo, in order to live, she uses soul collectors to gather dead souls in the area to keep living. And Inuyasha at first she wanted to kill Inuyasha as revenge, but she actually realized she learns the truth and wants to defeat Naraku, and they kind of still love each other, and they kiss several times throughout the anime, which really hurt Kagome. And because although Inuyasha so Inuyasha's technically, you would say, two-timing, because he still loves Kikyo, but he also has feelings for Kagome. But obviously he can't be with Kikyo because she's not technically alive per se. And eventually she does die in his arms after defeat from Naraku. Now, before she died, she was actually able to put a soul light in the Shinken Jewel, but at one point Naraku was able to get the shard from Kohaku, and so the light from the Shinken Jewel transferred to Kohaku so he could live and stuff. Also, I forgot one more thing. Kilala was a cat demon, a small little cat who could go into a big kind of saber-toothed fire-flying cat. Also was part of the group, which they traveled on a lot. That's another thing. And then Kagome always actually, every once in a while, travels back to her normal timeline through the well, so she could do try to get through middle school, and which really struggled because she's so away from school. She forgets things and even the tests and stuff, but she was able to graduate and go to high school. But that's besides the point. So eventually, there's a whole huge battle against Moroku. Moroku actually gets the entire Shinken Jewel and gets into this big form and of the demon spider. And so it's kind of that's kind of like a big giant demon spider thing, but they were actually able to defeat Naraku, and she was actually able to Kagome was actually able to send an arrow through the Shinken Jewel, and the jewel thought to be destroyed, but Naraku made one more wish before he was destroyed, that for Kagome to be trapped in the Shinken Jewel. And Inuyasha got the power from Susamu's sword to go into the cut things, and so somehow going into cutting in was able to allow him to go into the Shinken Jewel, which they don't really explain that, but it's kind of weird. But yeah, so the Shinken Jewel is trying to convince Kagome to make a wish so she could be trapped there and fight the demons inside the Shinken Jewel, just like the former priestess when it was first created, and Naraku's all there. But Inuyasha is actually able to break through and tell Kagome to not make a wish, and he finds her, and I think they kiss or whatever, the only kiss in the anime, but she wishes the Shinken to be destroyed, that which is not a selfless wish, is it's not a selfish wish, it's a selfless wish, and destroy it. But because of this, the Shinken Jewel is the only way she can actually go back and forth between the feudal era. And so when she gets back, she actually is back in her modern time, but then with Inuyasha, and she hugs her family, but then Inuyasha is kicked back to his timeline, and so she's stuck there for 3 years to have finished high school. So that's why it's different in Japan, because obviously here in America, high school is 4 years. Not, well, I guess it depends on the school, because sometimes there's other things, but most of the time it's 4 years. But there it's 3, so it's a weird concept. But other than that, there's a time jump where Sango and Muraku are already married. Oh, I forgot to mention this. Muraku and Sango fell in love throughout the series, although he still kind of hit on women. But at one point, he did propose to her to ask her to marry, and she accepted it. And then after defeating Naraku, they just settled down and got married. But they don't really show that. They already got married. They had 2 twin daughters already. Rin's actually also living in the village because Kaede wanted her to learn how to live a normal human, live with other humans instead of just being with a demon. And then after that, she could go with Susamu whenever she wants, but if she still wishes to do that. And but then at the one point, Rin told Kaede that Sango is about to have her childbirth. Another child, and so they kind of rush. We don't see the childbirth, but it's a new baby. Now Muraku and Inuyasha. Now Muraku's wind tunnel is gone also, but Inuyasha and Moroku were actually on a mission, and they came back, and his son was already born, and Sango's on the ground with her children, saying, "Moroku, meet your new baby son." And stuff like that, and then they're kind of doing something outside. I can't remember exactly what they were doing, but then Kagome, after finishing high school, somehow was actually able to go back to the feudal era, and she actually stays with Inuyasha, and they get married. Although it doesn't really say anything, but they don't really show the marriage. They just Kagome is just narrating that they got married. And talk about what Shippo's doing, which was training under this fox kind of training thing to become a full fox level demon high up there. He also talks about Koga. Now Koga, originally fell in love with Kagome. Well, at one point there was this girl named Ayame who was also a wolf demon. And she was actually, when she was younger, she was actually saved by Koga, and Koga told her that he will marry her someday, which he doesn't remember that, which was actually kind of a big plot point, but they do end up together getting married, which Kagome narrated, and we actually did see that marriage, actually. So that was kind of interesting. They actually showed that marriage. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of the series. Now I just finished talking about the ending of Inuyasha, but a little bit more details about that. See, Inuyasha went for 7 seasons, and then ended, and then years later the 8th season was released, and the reason for that is because the manga wasn't finished yet, and so they had to stop at the 7th season and wait till the manga completed, and then they released the final season. And since it was a long time since the last season was released, the 8th season got its own title called Inuyasha the Final Act. So if you're watching Inuyasha and it just randomly ends at season 7, or the way it ends in season 7, that is why. You have to watch the final act to actually finish up the series. And that's also, you have to keep in mind some of the voice actors, actresses changed, and that's because some of them retired, like the voice actress for Kagome retired in 2009, and the new voice actress is hard to get used to, but eventually you will hopefully get used to it. But yeah, I just want to quickly mention that. Alright, I know this is a long video, so but there was a lot to go over. Most likely I'm probably going to split these into 2 parts, because there's just so much to go over this series that I need to talk about. But other than that, I really enjoyed the series. Now this show has the most death that I've ever seen. And this is a shoujo, meaning an anime for girls. I'm not saying that girl animes can't have a lot of deaths, or girls can't have, they handle that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that what I'm saying is that's usually, you would think how society and usually how anime works and stuff like that, where you wouldn't think that that's the way it is. That's what I'm saying. Because I think it has even more deaths than any Shonen Jump property. I watched so many Shonen Jump property, and this has more death than that. And Shonen Jump is anime for boys, so that's why I'm a little surprised, because of how especially with Japanese culture and everything, that this show has a lot more depth than any guy show that's meant or targeted for guys. So, but that's kind of one thing. So if you don't like a lot of death in it, this is not the type of a show for you, because it's a fetal area love story, but there's a lot of death. So, yeah, and so that's pretty much everything. And like I said, I really enjoyed this series. I do recommend it. You should definitely watch it. I think everyone should watch it because it's pretty good. And yeah, well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you're new, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified for my next upload. My YouTube channel website link, my Twitter, my Snapchat, and Instagram are all in the description as always. And thank you. Goodbye.